Hello everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to my behind-the-scenes, DM-only livestream Crafting Annihilation, which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Tomb of Annihilation. If you are playing characters Mannix, Kaless, Gillian, George, or Theron, get the hell out of here. This stream is not for thine eyes, but for the rest of you, welcome. We stream our Tomb of Annihilation sessions live on YouTube every Friday evening. You can catch up on previous episodes on my YouTube page, as well as read weekly session recaps at roguewatson.com. If you would like to support the channel, go to patreon.com/roguewatson. Shout out to platinum patrons Andrew, Brian, Richard, Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, and Charles. Gold patrons RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy and Yuma, Marcos, David Vicente, Gilberto, Sean, aka Cert2B, Adam, Dead Lizard Lounge, Aukshi, and Sam. Thank you all very much for your support. For our campaign, we use Roll20.net. For streaming, I use Open Broadcaster software with Streamlabs. If you haven't already, check out my Roll20 review of Ghosts of Saltmarsh. That just went live this week. And also, I have slightly changed my streaming schedule this week. Normally, I would go live on Friday afternoon with my Let's Play game, which is currently Banner Saga 2, but it's my kiddo's last day of school for the school year until summer vacation, so we've got a big kind of family afternoon thing planned there. So I will not be streaming that afternoon. D&D will still go on as normal that evening, but instead I'm doing a makeup session today, which means literally about an hour after I finish doing Crafting Annihilation, I will be back streaming Banner Saga 2. Too much of me to handle, but hopefully some people can handle it. But for now, we're going to talk Tomb of Annihilation. Hello, Michael, Tiny. We are out of the jungle. Welcome to the not jungle, which I'm excited to change gears. You know, we've spent 35 sessions doing the jungle crawl thing. It's been fun. The only bummer I have, and it'll be really interesting because I do plan on doing a really big detailed, like, you know, what I liked and didn't like in terms of Tomb of Annihilation, as well as you know, how we actually ran things. And I think one of my regrets is going to be Nangalore, because that was a cool looking area. It had a neat map to it. It was an interesting kind of open, I was going to say open floor plan to use like a real estate term, but you know, not like a room-to-room dungeon, more like this is open area, designed like a dungeon, but they could still go in different areas. And then the final confrontation was with a Medusa who was not really deranged, but had thought that certain things were still in play that are not the case. So definitely some opportunities for interesting role-playing situations with the end, with essentially the dungeon boss that they could deal with. So it's a little bit of a bummer that we're not going to end up doing it. When I actually structured this Company of the Yellow Banner into I expanded it. So a Company of the Yellow Banner is a adventuring party that meets its end in the Tomb of Annihilation. It's almost kind of a fun Easter egg for one of the designers who's wrote in their adventuring group that he plays with. And they can all be found as various dead bodies in the Tomb of Annihilation. And what I did is I wanted to expand that and make it so this adventuring party can actually be tracked in terms of where they went and what they did, and that serves as basically filling out some locations on the eastern side of the board, which really all it did was fill out Nangalore, because otherwise the party would have no idea Nangalore was there. Obviously I could have introduced Nangalore in some other way, but this was the way that I wanted to introduce Nangalore and put it as a point of interest on the map. What ended up happening is the players then, once they found that it was on the map, they thought, oh, now we don't have to discover this place because we know this adventuring team had already been there. And that was not my intent at all, but I think it actually worked out pretty well for that, because I am kind of done with doing the hex crawling thing. It was diminishing returns in terms of, you know, they can long rest now all the time, and, you know, I unleashed this kind of predator beast to keep them out of the jungle. Like, I've got all these story things in play, and once they learn about Omu, and I don't have a ticking clock for the death curse, because I do think that's a big problematic thing that the adventure puts into place. It puts this awesome, like, open world thing, and then says, oh, but you've got this much time before you need to, like, beeline towards where you need to go. That's a really really weird thing to do. So I all but eliminated that. Other than, when they return to Port 9 I explain, okay, shit's really bad, and you need to care about this in terms of the death curse is actually affecting the world. But in terms of like you've got this ticking clock until other people die, I didn't do any of that. But plot wise, once the party learns about Omu, nothing else really matters. Like other than whatever kind of personal maybe quest you have for other players. But like it's like all they need to do is get to Omu. So once they learn that location, they don't need to explore these other. And when I originally thought about how to do Tomb of Annihilation, I thought, okay, if I want to make sure they do Orlunga and Nangalore, then I'll have those be the keys to get to Omu because they'll need to get that boat ship of the Brazen Pegasus in order to gain access to that, because that would make more sense to get the ship to go to Omu rather than trekking through this really dangerous jungle, which I painted as like you don't want to go basically south of about the middle field here. But because they found Nangalore here, I'm having a problem with the cloud cover too. I'm constantly changing my brightness level. This is what I get for using natural lighting. There we go. And then as soon as the sun comes out, I'll be really bright again. So I have mixed feelings about how that ended up working. But I'm mixed because I like Nangalore and I wanted to run Nangalore, but on the other hand, I'm ready to get out of the jungle. So I think ultimately it will serve the best interest of this campaign to have us just go ahead and skip it, because at this point there was no real good way of getting them Nangalore. I guess the other thing I could have done is not unleash the Steel Predator, had them just stop in Heart of Ubtao, let them teleport to Port 9 and then if they wanted to, they could have hopped over to Nangalore. But I kind of did that Steel Predator thing to keep them out, to basically stop them from journeying south to Omu, and really I wanted them on this ship because I wanted to eliminate the jungle crawling part. I was like, alright, look, going this hex grid has been a lot of fun, but we don't need to do that for the second half of this campaign. Instead, you've got access to this ship, which can get over to these other locations, and conveniently, all these other locations are basically on the water. And by other locations, I mean specifically Jahaka Anchorage, Dangwaru, and the Wormheart Mine, which are all accessible with a ship. And then from Wormheart Mine, then go to Krakamar, and then from there, there'll be a little bit of crawling right here. I might come up with some interesting events, because they'll probably go down this Valley of Lost Honor towards Omu. But I think ultimately it'll work out. And all of that is just a rant about how I am a little bit bummed that we're not running Nangalore, because I do think it's an interesting map. And unfortunately, because I put it on the map and already explained what it is, I can't just do the thing I did with Dungringlung, which is slide it somewhere else and just happen to have the parties stumble into it. There's not really a good way of doing that at this point, so oh well. And you don't need to run all the content from an adventure anyway. I'm okay about skipping Kirsabal and Needle's Bones. I just think ultimately Nangalore will just be a bit of a bummer, because I did like that location and the idea behind it. But for now, it sounds like the party will be traveling back down the River Tariki to go back to Port 9 to get on the ship for the Brazen Pegasus, which all of this will be pretty much hand-waved. I know originally I was going to have a Frost Giant encounter, but I don't think I'm going to do that now, because I just want to get them on the ship and get into kind of the ship part of this adventure. And the Frost Giant encounter, yeah, it does involve Artist Kimber, but there's not much going on there still. It's just, hey, Frost Giants are searching for Artist Kimber. I don't know how to make that a little bit more exciting, and we already know where Artist Kimber, and we've already gotten updates on Artist Kimber in terms of he visited the Oracle at Orlunga, and he's traveling south towards Omu, and Zendala's catching up with him and all that, and I'll plan on revisiting all that probably around the time they land in Shilku Bay. That'll probably be the Valley of Lost Honor events, is I will wrap up the Artist Kimber Zendala either right before Omu or when they're in the valley. But for now, I'm going to have them get on the ship, and there's going to be a little event between Captain Ordame and Zindar where basically and see the sun come out and I'm all bright like a holy light. I faced east, if you can't, if you didn't already know. And they'll be explaining that the town is now basically going to be on quarantine, on lockdown. Nobody can come or go. And because Captain Ordame has a good rapport with the harbor master, the players will be allowed to leave, but it'll be one of those things like this is going to be the point of no return for Port 9 Zaru. So, you all have enough supplies on the ship, but at this point, you are not meant to return to civilization for pretty much the rest of this campaign, unless I put a teleporter somewhere else, which I don't foresee me doing. Then I think this will be the last chance players will get, and there won't be any restocking of supplies. They'll be able to buy any of the supplies they saw the first time. I would probably allow that, but and I would also keep in mind that, hey, by the way, this is going to be a really obvious money sink, but you have to pass through Arameg again, the dragon turtle who guards the Bay of Chult. They did not have to deal with Arameg because if you do not leave the Bay of Chult, then you don't have to deal with it. And so when they went to Fort Belwarian via ship, they did not have to pay the dragon turtle's toll again, but as they are going to be leaving, they will. And this time, because they are higher level, instead of the dragon turtle just smacking the ship and everybody falling off, if they're a little too wishy-washy on pouring money over the side, if they're just dropping pennies or something, or not at all, then the dragon turtle I'll give them a warning, and then if they still don't do anything, the dragon turtle will just unleash its steam breath all over the ship, which is obviously very, very bad for everyone, because that is a powerful thing that can probably take out Mannix in one hit. That's pretty much my barometer for damage. Is it? I think somebody said on the stream chat that's worth 1 Mannix's or something when it comes to damage. The Steam Breath has an average 52, which means if I roll well and Mannix still makes the save, I think he could still go down. That's how strong this is and how little of hit points he's got. And that's just a funny way of like, hey, they're higher level now. This is going to be the penalty. It's a DC 18 con saving throw, which is not very high, although players do have pretty good constitution scores. I believe George, Theron, and Kaless all have remarkably high con saving throws. So that'll just be a single event. The number that I'm looking for that they have to donate, which I need to share my new notes with Platinum patrons. I've got a section now for, I called it the Mist Cliff, because I think that's what's this like shoreline called, I guess, from the mountains. I am looking for 250 gold worth of coins or valuables to be tossed overboard, which sounds like a lot, but when divided amongst 5 PCs, it's really not. And the NPCs, Captain Orderman, although they'll be dumping some money over, but I'm kind of hand-waving whatever they like. No, it doesn't matter what they do. The PCs need to do 250 gold worth of valuables. They can make a persuasion check, and the book says they can make a persuasion check, but the dragon turtle only speaks, which this happens a couple times in this book. I don't know if the designers just forgot certain things don't speak the right languages. Like, that was a big problem in Dungrunglung. There was supposed to be this big role-playing event in Dungrunglung, but none of the Grung speak common, so I don't know how you're supposed to do that. And the same thing here, where the dragon turtle only speaks Aquan and Draconic. It doesn't speak common. So I don't know how a person can persuade the dragon other than some hilarious like pantomiming routine. But if somebody speaks Draconic, which I guess I can check, or if I guess Gillian can use tongues, but I think that's a touch spell, and I don't think she would want to touch the dragon turtle. I guess we can check languages. Common, Dwarvish, Thieves' Cant, Undercommon. It's kind of random. I like how a lot of PCs just have random languages without any real backstory of why. Elvish and Undercommon. Ooh, do Tritons know Aquatic? Or Aquan? No, she knows Primordial. That's interesting. Not Aquatic, but Primordial. And Gnomish. Everybody's got one really random language that they know. George knows Halfling. Alright, they've got like all the basic ones covered amongst the 5 of them. That's funny. And Theron's got Dwarvish, Elvish, Druidic. So none of them can speak Draconic, which that really seems like an oversight. So I don't think they would be able to persuade to make that different one or the other. But I would give them a warning first, like it's opening its maw, and you can see the steam hissing, and Captain Orderman will be like, oh shit, usually he just smacks the side of the boat and, you know, cracks a little bit as a warning, but he must be pretty pissed because not a lot of ships have been coming or going with the death curse in place. They've been They've been shutting that down, so they'll be getting a steam breath in the face if they don't drop enough money. Which, you could argue that the penalty for damage doesn't matter as much when you're long resting constantly, but again, they don't have access to the city anymore, so any lingering injuries are going to be a big damn deal. At some point, I would probably have them, a reward of a greater restoration scroll or something later on to kind of help balance the scales in that way. But otherwise, they will not have access to, say, the healing of Port 9's Aru. So if people just go down, that is a thing that we have in our campaign, is if you reach 0 hit points, you have a chance. It's not guaranteed, but you have a chance of getting a lingering injury, which I think most of them have been saddled with by now. So that'll be the day 1 event. Now, a sailing ship, which I actually figured this out before, but the Ghost of Saltmarsh confirmed it. Or did I figure it out? It might have been in the Dungeon Master's Guide. But a sailing ship can travel 120 miles per day. Each of these hexes is 10 miles, so they can travel 12 hexes in a day, which is the other reason why I convinced them to have the ship be the proper route to get to Omu, because 12 hexes in a day is way better and prevents me from having to do a bunch of hand waving, like, yeah, you spend a week in the jungle and nothing happens, kind of a thing that I was leaning towards with the very, very end of their level 5 excursion in the jungle. This way they can really just haul ass and travel all the way. I mean, one day gets you out of the bay. Day 2, just rough estimate. Day 3, I think I figured out that you can get to Jahaka Bay somewhere in the middle of day 6. So, a straight shot, and again, the ship doesn't have to stop and rest. That's a big advantage. So I need to prep 5 days worth of possible encounters until getting to Jahaka Bay, which I assume, well, I don't assume, I have to assume, but the pirates will be the first thing the players tackle, and then I will also mention the fact that this other X on the map is related to Gillian's personal quest, which is a temple ship that her and her brother were a part of as diplomats, and then everybody got slaughtered except for her. She was able to escape, and then she's been hunting for the ship, trying to find her brother. And this ship had crashed right here in Jahaka Bay and has been reformatted into a kind of seaside temple dungeon, which is the Dangwaru dungeon from the Tortle package, which was published by Wizards of the Coast and added Tortles to the official races that you can play. So that'll be a fun dungeon to tackle. I'll probably have to switch things around a little bit, but otherwise, as is, I think it'll be a nice one to run. And I do have an actual player's map I can just drag and drop in here. That will probably be on a Crafting Annihilation episode, not obviously today, but in the next week or 2, I'll have to prep that dungeon, which should be fun, because I don't have to prep a whole lot of dungeons too much in terms of like the physical tokens and dynamic lighting and all that. Oralunga was kind of a special case where I had to do that one, and then Dangwara will be pretty much the other major dungeon that I have to build that's not already set with this campaign. But I would think that they would handle Jahaka Anchorage first, because one of the encounters I plan on doing, and this is in the book as well, is Jahaka Anchorage is made up of 3 pirate crews who have banded together and are now essentially the crime bosses of Chult, and they are in cahoots with Fort Belwarian, which the players know. And one of them is always out patrolling, one of them is out guarding in Jahaka Bay, and the last one is just parked in the anchorage, essentially on shore leave. So it's up to me to determine which of the 3 are where, and how best that serves the story. Now, the players initially ran into Captain Lascalar, who was the kind of flamboyant, I kind of played him up as a Jack Sparrow type. Let's see, where is the section of Jahaka? Which I don't know if they're mentioned here or mentioned in the... There we go, pirates. So you've got Captain Elok Jaharwan, who I believe is the werebore? Yes. So he's a surprise werebore, and he's just the brute. He's just a fucking asshole. He actually mutinied against his captain. So he's like the muscle, and he actually wants to break it off with Fort Belwarian and just take everything for himself, which the pirates are like, no, dude, we got a good thing going here. Captain Zaroom is the kind of foppish, rich pirate who's got like a gem in his eye, which it doesn't say the gem is magical, but I gotta think that's an opportunity to have like a magical gem eye. So I might make that a magical item. And then Captain Lascalar, who is, as I said, the kind of Jack Sparrow type. So they've all got slightly different crews, but they're pretty similar in terms of it's just bandits, thugs, and then maybe a like veteran or gladiator as a first mate. This one's got berserker, gladiator, and then maybe a smattering of a few spellcasters. So they're not really like really hard, but they do have a lot of people. I mean, the 15 bandits, 3 thugs, and a druid. That's nothing to balk at. I think what I'm leaning towards doing is having them run into the werebore captain on the seas. So at some point, probably on day 4. So my encounters, real quick, that I've got planned. As I said, day 1 is the dragon turtle. Day 2 is basically no encounter. They see a bunch of Dimetrodon on the beach here as they kind of slingshot around it. If Theron wants to, we can probably get a new wild shape there, but that's the only thing happening there. Day 3, I also pretty much had no encounter. I am going to probably prep some like social things happening with the ship, and maybe because I've got we should have Hugh Hackenstone and Musharib, the albino druid. So we should have 2 new guides. So I'll have to prep some kind of dialogue sessions there where I can kind of flesh out those characters, because they were introduced very early on, and then we did get a follow-up with Hugh Hackenstone when Theron went to Port Nine Zar, and I love the dynamic between Theron and Hugh as friends. And obviously I'm playing Hugh as kind of the lovable loser who's just obsessed with Wormheart Mine and almost kind of a stone around Theron's neck. So I'm liking that dynamic a lot. I just have to make Musharib kind of equally interesting and just mainly create some hopefully interesting role-playing opportunities. And that's a really crapshoot, because it just depends. Sometimes the players are really into it and they want to be able to have fun with it. Other times they just kind of nod their head, and you can tell we just kind of want to move on to the next event. So that'll be a case like that, where if players want to just have fun role-playing on the ship, then we will totally do that. If not, then we'll kind of skip ahead past that day. The eye could detect invisibility or be a scorching ray spell. You know, we actually already have a scorching ray magic item, which is the crown off the Grung king, I guess, the leader of the Grung. Gillian's got a tiara that shoots the scorching ray as a laser blast. But yeah, it definitely could be something cool. And I actually gave Manix also has a magical eye, which is funny. So we've got kind of overlapping magical stuff here. I was thinking maybe like a gem of brightness, although they also have a dagger that does that. So I've kind of worked myself into a corner in terms of the magic items that I've already given them. Maybe it could be one of the ion stones that could be doing something. I don't know. So the main encounters I have in terms of hostile encounters are going to be the pirates, and then I've got a death fog encounter, which I'll get to in a second. So the pirates is obviously I want to unleash one of these 3, and I'm leaning towards doing the werebore captain. He's just a total brute, and it's going to be set up similarly to the first encounter. And this will be a fun way, which Storm King's Thunder does a really cool thing, where it introduces giants early on when you're fairly low level, and you really can't, PCs can't stand up to giants in tier 1. Like, you're attacked. A whole town is attacked by. I could do Ring of Spellstoring. That's not a bad one. I was gonna say I already gave Gillian a Pearl of Power, but that's not the same. That's just a replenish spell slot thing. But like, if you have to defend the town of was it Bryn Shander as a giants attack, and the players get a bunch of extra NPCs to help them, and plus the giants don't target the players. Like, there's ways to do it. And then later on in the campaign, by the time you're like nearing the end of tier 2, then you're actually fighting giants, and it feels cool, because before you really couldn't stand up to them, and then you feel that player growth in terms of power, and it's a cool effect. We're like, okay, now we can fight giants now that we've got 4 or 5 levels under our belt. So the cool thing here is that the players initially dealt with a pirate, a whole crew of pirates coming in there. It was like session 2, I think, and they basically couldn't do anything. They had to all hide and essentially let Lascalar kind of swagger around and steal from Captain Ordame and do all this, and just kind of bide their time. So, and they will eventually get their revenge on him, but I want to create a cool situation where the same thing is going to happen, with a different pirate crew, but now the players are a lot stronger and certainly could turn it into a gigantic bloodbath if they wanted to. So I've got the same Brazen Pegasus map set up here. This predates the Ghost of Saltmarsh has a cool effect where it creates a token of the ship, which is really neat because then you can put it on a battlefield and then move the ship around, which is interesting. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, I don't like it. Not to go on too much of a rant, but the Ghost of Saltmarsh content, none of it is in color. It's all black and white, which just doesn't look as good as this, which looks good. This looks like a good ship map. So sticking to this for now. It's a little tricky to do battles on it. I'll show you how I did it, but this is the regular Brazen Pegasus, which their crew is vastly reduced. Oh, I need to put Musharib on here too, don't I? Assuming they get Musharib, I could, I guess, decide that he's not there. I need to figure that out. Because obviously putting more guides, again, that runs into the problem of having a lot of NPCs, and they will have a lot of NPCs here. So even if the players are strong, but they also have Captain Ortome. They've got Grig, who's the first mate, who's a veteran, and then I think I did a trio of the crew, which is a fraction of what they started with, and that was kind of built into the story. Is like a lot of the crew of the Brazen Pegasus are not returning because of the death curse being so bad. They're sticking with their families or whatever else has happened, so they're not getting back on the ship. It would probably... You know what I could do is have Musharib join them, but he's a pacifist, which is kind of another bullshit thing of doing what I did with Vorn. But I could build that into the albino dwarves culture, and he could still be used. I mean, look, a lot of his spells even support that. They're not offensive at all. Speak with animals, pass without trace, speak with plants. And he kind of steps on Theron's toes a bit when it comes to having a druid option. But I kind of like... I think I like that. Maybe he can join the crew, but he's a pacifist. He doesn't want to attack like undead or anything, maybe. So he's just there to tell them about... Because Hugh is Wormheart Mine, and Musharib is Hrakamar. And there's a little bit of a tension there where Hugh wants to claim Hrakamar also. And that was kind of a cool story we were building up with Theron there in terms of how he's going to deal with that. So I think I will have him join the party. I'll need to do some dialogue mention in Port Nyanzaro so they can at least go grab him. So they will have 2 more NPCs. So the pirate encounter, which is this one, you can see here what I've done is I moved the whole map over, and I literally did like a print screen copy paste to make more water on this side, and then just found this ship art in the Roll20 asset, just free asset store, which is similar to how they had the first encounter, which I used a similar style, but I basically moved everything over so I could put more of the ship here. So obviously this map assumes they get far enough where the ship will board them. Now the tricky thing is, with this entire situation, I have no idea what the players will do or how they will react or how I will react. I can anticipate what's going to happen, which is the pirates' goal. The players should be able to spot them coming, obviously, but the pirates' goal will be the same thing Lascalar did, which was to saddle up right next to this ship and basically just extort them, like come on board and steal, kind of like a gangster, crime family boss would, which is go up there and just take a portion of everything, and because this is the more brutal pirate captain, maybe he actually like kicks people down and smashes stuff and is even worse than the other one. And maybe the players will come up with some cool plan where they'll pretend like they're not there at all and then unleash a surprise attack. Like, that could be really cool. I would definitely support that. I would like to get to the point where we're at least here doing a more traditional fight with the ships next to each other rather than trying to do a naval battle. And Captain Ortome will definitely be there saying, like, the only way we're going to have a chance at defeating this ship is if they get in close and we actually fight them person to person, because the Brazen Pegasus, she will inform the players like this ship is not set up to take on their ship. Like their ship is bigger, that has more weapons, they have more crew, they can fire more often. Like we're a little bit faster and more nimble, but once we get into a certain range, if we don't slow down, they're just going to start chucking this mangonel, this catapult, over and start breaking us up until that cripples us, and then we have to start. We just have to slow down. And she knows the rules, basically, which, again, the players, they kind of learned about this as they arrived, but it has been a while, so I'll have to remind them. In terms of if you don't slow down and let them board you, they will basically just scuttle your ship, and it's much worse for you. So I'm hoping the players take that to heart and come up with a plan that's like, okay, let's let them come in close, and maybe we can even have a dialogue scene, which I'll have a dialogue scene anyway, no matter what they do, assuming they don't immediately just open fire. But I am preparing this to be a battle, just a straight-up, straightforward battle. As I said, this guy's a werebore. He would be very quick to take offense at anything or be aggressive, so I could see a battle happening. I do have stats for firing ballistas, which would be an interesting thing that a lot of the pirate crew can do back here. And I've even got more that would be like downstairs at the time. But there's a lot of people here. I believe each of these is a thug's stat block, which is a little bit better than a bandit. They have the multi-attack. They still have actually pretty garbage armor class, but they've got more hit points and a multi-attack. And they have pack tactics. They're like wolves, apparently. And then there's a bunch of generic bandits, which, again, they'd be firing a lot of these ballistas, which makes bandits a lot stronger if they can fire these, which they can't fire them every turn. There's actually there's a rule that it takes 3 separate actions, which, again, I took from Ghosts of Saltmarsh. But if you have multiple people firing a ballista, if you have 3 people on a ballista, you could, in theory, fire it in one turn if you took up 3 people, and they've got the crew on their side to be able to do this, and it's a much stronger attack, so that'd be interesting. Is that the C map from the module? This map is on the DM's guide. You are both correct. This map is on the Dungeon Master's Guide. It's actually in the back of the book, I believe, whenever they show like a couple different sample dungeons and things. This exact one is from the DMG, but it was included in Tomb of Annihilation as well, just kind of as a reminder about this. And then Roll20 put it in the module, and obviously I've been getting a lot of good use out of it because I think it's just a really good map. It's a good solution to doing the top and the bottom, which is kind of a line here. And I mean, it's not perfect. You move them across. Like I said, I really like what Roll20 did with the Ghosts of Saltmarsh tokens, where you can just the ship is a token, and you can just it's a multi-sided token, so you can switch the levels between the ships, and then players can go up or down that way. Although if you need to split your party up, you could create multiple tokens. But more importantly, as a token, you can just put the ship on a giant big damn sea map and then create all kinds of dynamic encounters. Whereas with this one being a static map, it's not very big. You can see I don't have a whole lot of room on either side, and in fact I had to make more room manually, kind of jankily, but it worked because I was able to put a ship right here to kind of cover up the jankiness of how I connected one side to the other. So I had to kind of work with that and make it work. But I think it's going to work. And obviously I created a separate map so that I've got the normal one here for the other encounter. Yeah, it's a pretty good map. I like this one a lot. I really wish Wizards had used Wizards had used this color map and style for Ghosts of Saltmarsh. I don't know why they went with just kind of a black and white style, because if I could have this exact art as a token, that would have been amazing. That would have been like the best case scenario, because then I could have moved it around, done all whatever, and you could even turn a token into the map if you wanted to. Like, it wouldn't have been a big thing. So that would have been awesome. But oh well, this is still what I can work with. I don't even have the players on this map, do I? I should probably put them on here. In fact, Musharib, you need to be moved up to the party NPC folder, which is now getting quite... Look at that. That is huge. Not all of these guys are party NPCs. This is kind of a reminder of everybody who's joined the party at some point, which this is going to have some really interesting thoughts from me at the end of this campaign in terms of how well this worked and how well it didn't. But that is pretty nuts when you look at the full list of NPCs that have joined the party, either officially or unofficially. Azaka, by the way, will be officially leaving the party when they get back to Port Nine Zaru. They'll have completed her quest. It'd be like retiring in Gloomhaven. Like, she doesn't need to adventure anymore at this point. And plus, she knows they're going on a ship here, so her jungle skills aren't necessarily going to be needed. So, she'll thank the party, and she will officially leave at that point, which I don't see ever reintroducing her. That would be a pretty weird Deus Ex Machina if she actually ever popped up again to save them, because I don't know how. Like I said, I'm shutting down the city, so I don't think we'll be seeing Azaka anymore. But I also think we've gotten a lot of Azaka already, and she's been a helpful crutch for the players in the lower levels, and I think she served her purpose narratively and as a balancing tool, similar to the Tabaxi, similar to Vorn, similar to Undril. All those characters, I think, served their purpose pretty well. Salida did return to the city, but her fate is unknown, and I plan on unleashing her in Omu. I'm going to definitely handwave how the hell she makes it all the way to Omu, but, the players have spent some time doing all these, they went to Firefinger and back. That took a week, and then they'll be going across to Jahaka Bay and all these other areas, so it would not be feasible if someone left Port Nine Zaru immediately and had the safety of, UNT networking to make it all the way down to Omu. So I think that could be a fun surprise. Probably not as much as a fun surprise if Salida were going with them, but I just don't see me being able to keep up the ruse for that length of time. And plus, they've already going to have Musharib and Hugh with them, and I don't want to kind of have just too many NPCs. Just creates too many problems and takes too much of the focus away from the players. So I'm okay with writing her out of the story right now, and then reintroducing her for probably that big moment to come in Omu, where I can hopefully capture the players and drag them to the Fane of the Night Serpent, which is a very, very tricky thing to do as a DM. You have to be very careful about taking away agency and decision-making by your players and force them into this context. So hopefully it'll work off organically. That's obviously well in the future at this point, but that is my plan and dream, will be to pull them off and then have the Fane of the Night Serpent be this really unique situation where it's a prison break from the middle of a dungeon with a bunch of role-playing opportunities that can still take place. And I think that has a lot of really fun opportunities available. Let's put everything in this map real quick. So I expect this encounter to be a combat encounter. How the players want to deal with this, if they want to hide and then ambush, or whatever else they want to do, I'm okay with. They will obviously be full rested. So, and I don't see this, a lot of the encounters that we have. Oh God, Azaka in the last room is a body bag. Yeah, I need to look more at the final Tomb of Annihilation, because there are some neat things you can do with that. There was specifically, I think, a part where you can have somebody. I think that's what you mentioned. The body bag is there's somebody that can be dead that the book recommends. It should be somebody the players care about, which, I mean, no shit. But again, even including her in any way just feels a little bit. I feel like I could do Salida, but having Salida and Azaka show up later on might be a little much. But who knows? Maybe it'll be cool. I don't see this being a terribly difficult fight. There are a lot of NPCs here, but none of them are particularly strong. The Werebore, the captain, has 85 hit points, which is pretty solid, but he only has a fucking... Actually, I think he's got 11. I might as well put that as 11, because he's got 11... He only has 11 armor class in Boar or hybrid form. Let's go ahead and make that 11. Not that I think that's going to make a big freaking deal. All these guys have really garbage armor class, by the way. Really terrible. Nobody wears... I mean, it makes sense. Nobody wears armor, I guess, but you'd think they'd be a little more dexterous. I don't know. Obviously, him transforming into a Werebore would be a cool moment, and he would definitely try to attack people. I have never run into a situation where I've been able to inflict lycanthropy on my players, even though the opportunities have come up multiple times, which could be a really fascinating thing to do. I would have to... Well, I guess cross that bridge when we get to it if it happens, but I think I'd have to come up with some unique rules for that. But that could be a fun thing that happens when he mauls people and they're like, oh shit, he can actually inflict the lycanthropy. But he would definitely... Unfortunately, I believe it takes an action for him to transform, which is always a bummer. Because that's because as a DM, you know you don't have very much time with your enemies. Every round matters, and to spend one round transforming kind of sucks, but hopefully it'll be alright. I would like to turn this into an encounter, though. It's got a limited battlefield. Players can do fun things with jumping people into water, and there's ballistas on the ships players can operate, and enemies will be shooting ballistas at them. There are like red shirts and NPCs that can help. If it gets really crazy in terms of like just one pirate attacking another, I'll probably hand wave that, but otherwise, I don't think it'd be too hard to do some rolls back and forth. I do see this being it could be a challenging fight. Just depends. If the players come up with a really fun ambush, then a surprise round can be extremely effective. My group, all NPC scouts keep dying. Yeah, that never really happened here. Obviously as a DM, I can be as kind or brutal to the NPCs as I want, and that came close several times, but it never quite happened. I always thought that would make for an interesting way to show off the dangers of the jungle without killing players, but I think the players still got the message. I mean, they did go down several times, but we never did lose an NPC, and I thought that could definitely happen, if not with the net, maybe a Tabaxi or something, but it never quite happened with this campaign. Make a player a werebore. Yep, that's a possibility, which I think he's got. Yeah, he's got this multi-sided token. I do have a druid. I think it's a druid. Is it a druid? Yeah, what can you do, druid? One thing I'm bad about prepping, I always prep story stuff, but I don't actually prep like how I'm going to run a combat encounter. So a lot of times and that's just a failing of mine as a DM, whenever I have more complicated enemies and spellcasters and things, I might not play them to the best of their abilities, because it's not something I prioritize when I should. Man, I wish you had like an AoE bark skin. Ooh, you could cast bark skin on Jaharwan. Is it concentration? It is concentration. Which, yeah, you would just be shot immediately, and players know to target spellcasters. The only other thing you can do, entangle, maybe. I don't know if you actually can entangle on a ship. There's no weeds and vines. Does entangle work? And there's not one. That could be a sort of good one, especially to keep them on that side of the ship, maybe. Or Thunderwave, which does a big. Ooh, Thunderwave could be good because you could do it and then knock them over the boat if you did it at the right spot. That would probably be the good attack spell. You could do Thunderwave at level 2. Otherwise, Druid stat block's not very impressive. CR2. Yeah, it's just Entangle, Bark Skin, and Thunderwave pretty much for combat. Don't think the rest are going to do you any good. So it'll just be kind of a mundane, like, pirate, clashing scene. But I'm hoping that we can make it fun because of the battlefield. It's a really unique battlefield situation with the ship right here and with some mounted weapons. I don't think you can use the mangonel this close. Let's put that on the map layer, actually. But you could certainly fire and swivel these ballistas if you had enough people operating them. Which do the ballistas, again, according to Ghosts of Saltmarsh, ballistas have a +6 attack. They have a 120-foot range. And they do 3d10 piercing damage, which is a lot stronger than any one bandit can do. Now, as I mentioned, it takes 3 separate actions to load, aim, and fire a ballista. You could argue that they are already loaded, obviously, by the time this ship docks, and they can, I would probably argue they would be aiming them as well. So I think that would get that first volley off, and then after that, it would probably take like 2 per ballista, or I guess 3 per ballista in order to load, aim, and fire the next one if you want to do it in another single round. So, but I think that can be a really neat, like, visual dynamic, is just firing ballistas into each other. Which, as you see, the Brazen Pegasus does have 2 of them, although I think I would argue maybe only one of them can be swiveled this direction, same as, like, they would only be able to use, I just plopped a random amount, like 3 ballistas over here, and as you can see, they are vastly outmanned on their smaller ship, but obviously PCs are very strong and have a lot of cool abilities that they can do. The floor is made of wood. That's a good point. It is made of wood. Would that actually, like, fuck up the ship a little bit to have it like splinter, like break the wood. I could probably work with that. Just the wood just starts morphing and turning back into plants as it goes up and entangles people. That could be interesting. Some dead NPCs. Salida, Dragonbait, Artist. How did you kill Artist Kimber? It's all another random scout. Jeez. Ropes can be made from hemp for entangle to work. Very true. Ropes could work. Yeah, that's true. That's a good way of flavoring it. They cast entangled, a bunch of the ropes come in and restrain people. I like that too. Because the thing I'm worried about is you're normally going to get one frickin' round with this druid. The way players work, they're going to all target the spellcaster if they can. So I'm assuming I'm going to get like one spell off. And I don't know if it's worth casting Barkskin. I mean, Barkskin on the boss would be really useful, but they have to maintain concentration. And I just to figure that druid's going to die, so I might as well do something. Either Entangle or Thunderwave would be the more, I think, interesting thing to do rather than Barkskin. It's one of the more boring things you can do as a DM is just give things more defenses. I think one of the more exciting things you can do is attack the player. So I'm always looking at offensive spells to do. Although there's some fun things you can do with defenses too and make it more difficult, but I think that could be interesting. So yeah, this will be one of the encounters. Now the interesting thing here is, obviously the players are meant to win this fight. The pirates would probably surrender if it came down to it. But now the players would be in an interesting situation. Oh, that's true. The druid could cast the spell and go below deck. You know what I don't have? I don't have a map for below deck. I just realized. That's kind of a problem. I only have this topside map. I'll have to abstract that if it gets to that point. If it gets to the point where the players have killed everybody up top and they're storming below deck, I would probably just have a scene of like the enemies just coming up with their hands up. Because at that point, I don't know if we need to keep battle unless somehow the players have snuck aboard the ship and gone down during the fight. But I'll still, yeah, I would definitely try to do a cover system for sure. Which I think that's written in Ghost of Saltmarsh too. You actually have cover. If you're specifically doing like the XCOM thing of like hiding behind, you know, like the edge of the ship here. So that's something I'll have to remember and implement. Probably like half cover, which that's the only rule that's a little bit complicated with D&D 5th edition. It doesn't just do the advantage-disadvantage thing. It actually like adds a number to AC to where I have to like remember it. I think it's like a, yeah, +2 to AC and dexterity saving throws if you have half cover. 3/4 is a +5. So I will have to keep that in mind, although the players will be able to take better advantage of that because they have a shit ton more AC. So the bad thing is if I start implementing that cover rule, then it'll be way harder for me to hit the PCs. But that's something to keep in mind. Maybe I'll just have it be like you can hide behind the mast here, which I actually need to put that on the make a little dynamic layer here. So I forgot, because when I made this new map it didn't carry over any of the dynamic lighting. So the other one has dynamic lighting all over the rails and things, which I actually deleted that because I think that's just a pain in the butt, and just like, look, you can see the ship, that's fine. But I do see it can be useful to create some areas that can block a line of sight. Maybe like that. And then make another one over here. Maybe a little smaller as the other mast. Oh yeah, and there's one up here. Gee, this is a way bigger ship. There we go. So that'll kind of block a little bit of the light and create some areas where you can get some cover. So maybe I wouldn't say that the rails give you cover, but if you wanted to actually get in like this one spot back here, I would allow half cover. Same thing back here for these masts. I may actually even do 3/4 cover because these masts are so much bigger than the other one. But anyway, the interesting thing here is that if the players win, they have another freaking ship. They have access to a gigantic, more powerful pirate ship, which I think I'm okay with, because now that creates some really interesting story opportunities of how the players gain access to Jahaka Anchorage. They could go in with his other ship. That's one of the big ships. The last thing the pirates would anticipate would be somebody taking them out and just taking their ship over and then getting in close. So that would allow them to, say, get in. I don't know if I would let them literally go all the way into Jahaka Anchorage, because like I said, there's one ship that's always outside patrolling, and at some point, everybody's got, I assume, spy glasses and shit. They would be able to tell, like, this isn't the right crew and everything else. So at a certain distance, that would fall apart, but it would allow them to get close to the ship that's patrolling the outside, in order to probably have another fight set up there. And that one might be more of a ship-to-ship combat, depending on what the players want to do. If they want to just charge into Anchorage, or if they want to just charge into battle with that ship, or how they want to do things there. So I'm really looking forward to creating some interesting opportunities here, and I kind of do want to reward them with a ship. Now, none of the players know how to pilot a ship, I don't believe. I think that's literally like a kind of like a tool proficiency, is like vehicles. So they would have to probably, Captain Ortome would not abandon her ship, so maybe they could get the first mate would be like promoted from Ortome to be able to take this ship. There'd be some kind of combination, or maybe the party wants to do a crazy thing and split up, or the party could even leave the Brazen Pegasus behind, although I would probably allow that if they took Grig, depending on what the Brazen Pegasus looks like. So all of this I'm leaving up to the players, and I'm interested to see kind of what they feel. Or maybe they just like, all right, let's just torch this pirate ship and just destroy it. Like, maybe that's their MO. I can't imagine it, but and obviously as a DM I could choose, like, okay, it's loaded with, the captain gives a signal and the ship just starts exploding from the bottom. Like, he's got all this shit set up so nobody can take his ship. I could do that, but I kind of want to give them this ship opportunity, because I think it would give them, and maybe I can remind them about how Jahaka Anchorage works, or more than likely they'll want to interrogate somebody about how Jahaka Anchorage works, and then they can learn the fact that only these pirate ships are going to be allowed anywhere near it. There's always one out guarding it. Kind of how their system works, where there's one out doing patrols and actually doing the pirate work, there's one guarding, and then there's one just kind of resting inside. And I'm leaning towards having Lascalar obviously be the last one that they deal with. He's the one that's going to be in Jahaka Anchorage inland, which means they'll deal with Zaroom, who is guarding the bay. So I kind of want to just have them, the goal would be to win here. The goal is for always the players to win, unless I'm going to capture them. And then use this ship as a way of getting into Jahaka Anchorage in some way. Now, obviously, if they're going to have a straight-up fight with the one guarding outside, well, it'd still be, you're still several miles out, so they still wouldn't, the people in the Anchorage wouldn't know. So they could still do a surprise infiltration. They just have to deal with that guarding ship first, presumably. Or maybe they've got some other clever way. They could come up with some kind of hand signal. If they're really smart about it and they keep one of the pirates alive, maybe they'll come up with some way of signaling to that guarding ship. They're like, hey, we need to come into the Anchorage for an emergency. Don't fuck with us. I would probably allow that. And then they can go to the Anchorage and then decide how to deal with things from there. So I really want to give these opportunities to the players, and hopefully that could be really fun and interesting. Knowing George and Theron, they want to take the ship they capture and ram it into another ship. Probably, yeah. That could be really interesting. And there are rules from Ghosts of Saltmarsh about ramming ships. I believe your ship has to be really equipped with the right ramming thing to have that. I don't think I would have that equipped on this pirate ship. But they definitely would have a mangonel here, which allows you to basically launch catapults at other ships. Like, this is a lot stronger, more powerful. Now, the problem is they would have a way reduced crew, unless they somehow manage to, which, that's the other thing I could do, is that if they beat all this topside crew, and the players are just kicking ass, and they get down below deck, I could have, the last half a dozen crew members surrender, And now they do have a crew for this ship. So that's the other interesting thing. So I really could hand a ship over to them, which again I think I'm okay with for the most part, because I think that will create some even more fun and interesting situations. The other thing I have prepared, and I haven't quite decided. I could use the underdeck for the Brazen Pegasus. That's true. The other thing I haven't decided yet on when I want to do it, either before or after this. I'm leaning towards after, but I could do it before. Is what's showing on here, which is the Death Fog encounter. This is a encounter I was actually inspired by, literally from doing my review of Ghosts of Saltmarsh, which is just amazing timing that I had not planned at all. That I reviewed Ghosts of Saltmarsh at the same time as prepping like the sea travel portion of this campaign. And the Death Fog is a like fog cloud kind of a thing that just settles onto the ship and creates the fog cloud effect, and a bunch of specters appear in the cloud and attack everybody. So I love Pirates of the Caribbean. Do the undead pirate thing is fun, but I don't want to do that exactly. So I think this would be a good way of keeping in that theme. And the idea here is that I believe I've explained this before. I think the Oracle actually told them this, but like the souls are literally being drawn into the Soulmonger as if it was like one of those bug zapper beacons and things. Kind of like, I think one of the Ghostbusters movies might have done this, where it's like literally you can see all like the ghosts and spirits being sucked into this one location. The Oracle could see this, and that's how it knew that Omu was kind of a central part of, or the focus of where this Soulmonger was. And the idea is the players, as they travel along the coast, are literally going to run into this super highway of soul-sucking specters. Just cross right into it, and it's going to be manifested by this malaise that centers on the ship, and as this cloudy area physically, and then a bunch of specters are going to be dropping down, and obviously they are very pissed because their souls are being dragged into the Soulmonger, and they're just going to be attacking everything around them. So this is just a straight up combat encounter, fighting a bunch of specters on the ship. But I think it's going to be a cool flavor in that way. And as you can see, I've literally got like a thing here. I haven't decided if I'm going to use this or not. It might be too distracting. Literally put a... this might be a little too much. It's a very thick cloud. But I kind of want to create that feeling where the players can barely see. It's the fog cloud effect. Now, the only problem I foresee is that the players have multiple ways of dealing with gas that I've discovered. Gillian has a Gust of Wind ability she can cast, I believe, as a Triton. That's like just a once per day you can cast Gust of Wind, I think. And then Theron can cast Create or Destroy Water, which literally states it can destroy fog in an area. Now, my solution for that is that would destroy the fog in that specific zone, but then every round the fog would simply start to reform. I would probably try to do like where it would literally like do like maybe one would fill in one square like per round or something, to where it fills in all the way. If it's 20 foot wide, I forget what that spell is. But it would create a temporary safety zone without the fog, but it wouldn't destroy all of it because it's only, let's see, 30-foot cube. You can destroy fog in a 30-foot cube within range. So that would actually cover a big chunk of pretty much the entire length of the ship that way. Yeah, you could pretty much destroy the entire middle part of the ship if you wanted to. But every round it would start to cleanse a little bit more. Now the specters would still be there, but that would help them in terms of dealing with that. Now Gust of Wind, and it would start to reform after each round. Gust of Wind would be more problematic for me because it would shoot out all of the fog in a, 60-foot line or something? I guess it's 60 foot long, so it's 10 feet wide maybe. Let's see, Gust of Wind. 60 feet long and 10 feet wide. So And that one, it does blast from you. So you'd have to be, you want to be on one end of it ideally, and you could do this like this tunnel of non-fogness, which would remain for the duration. Now, that would be interesting because it would affect everybody. Would specters be affected by a gust of wind? I guess they would. And obviously, it would definitely disperse the gas in that area. Now, it is a concentration, so I could have the specters obviously just attack Gillian, and we all know that I love attacking Gillian. She's got the lowest AC, you gotta attack her. But there's no rules about the specters have to stay in the fog, is what I'm trying to say. So they would have ways of dealing with the fog, but it's just fog cloud. Now, I was thinking about actually doing damage. So maybe it does like 2d8 necrotic damage with maybe a con save while they're in the fog. Just to make it a little more interesting, but as I mentioned, they've got multiple ways of eliminating this fog. There will be a bunch of specters spawning in. I've got room for 10. I was going to do 2 per player, but then I realized we've also got extra NPCs here, so maybe I need to do even more than that. Specters are not strong by any means. Let's move this out of the way. I'm still not sure I'm actually going to use this. Oh, that is on the token layer. I mean, I kind of like the way it looks, I guess. But once they use those spells, there's no way for me to actually like cut this up in a way that looks good. I would just have to like draw, you know, something on top of it to make it like this is your safety zone, which maybe we could make that work. Let's put that back in the GM layer. But we've got multiple NPCs here. Now, the cool idea here is that if one of these specters kills you, and I believe this is actually how the death fog works. If you die in the fog, you die for real. You actually become a specter. So, as you can see, I've got a number of red shirts here, which are Captain Ordemay's like last bit of crew. I believe I've got 3. There'll be 1, I think, below deck when this starts. And the specters will be attacking everyone, but for sure attacking the crew, the poor red shirts of this crew. And if they manage to kill, which they might be able to take them out in one hit, frankly. I guess I could go ahead and roll hit points for them. Actually, you know what? Let's just give each one a solid. Did that go through? Let's give them a solid 10. No, I gotta change it here. Let's just give them 10 hit points, because the specters do on average 10 damage. So they would be able to kill a crew member in one hit, and then that crew member would become another specter, and that would probably freak the players out a little bit. But there's not a whole lot of red shirts here. I would basically only have these 2 that would be taken out, but just the sheer number of specters here could be a really scary thing, and I just plan on basically throwing them all over this map so it's really crowded and crazy. They're very cool looking. But that's the excuse, because right now I have a hard time with doing certain undead because of the fact that souls are being dragged to the soulmonger. So like, how do you do like ghost type undead if you've already established that like all the souls are being moved here? Well, the idea here is that literally these are the souls currently being moved to the soulmonger. It's just they're going very slowly, and you happen to cross paths with this, you know, highway of souls coming in, and they are pissed off. They do an average of 10 damage. It's 3d6 necrotic. Target must succeed on a DC 10 con saving throw, or its hit point maximum is reduced by amount equal to the damage taken. The reduction lasts until the creature finishes a long rest. So that's not a super big deal, other than I guess somebody wouldn't be able to heal up as effectively if they get hit a bunch of times. That could be interesting. Make sure they're on toggle and not always. And it's a very, very easy creature to run. They just have the 1 attack. +4 is not big. Although, as you recall with that Flaming Fist encounter, where I had a bunch of like +2 or +3 crossbow hits that almost took out George because every single one of them hit. Like, this one really comes down to the dice. If I'm hitting with these, which I don't think I would do a surprise round. I think it would just be, well, surprise round might be too much. I don't think I would do a surprise round. I think it would just be roll initiative with all these specters around you. Once you realize that they're hostile, and that's a big deal too. If I roll, you know, where do I fit on the initiative, and how, you know, can they get all their attacks off first, or how does that work? So, because they're not It's another fun creature that has no defenses. You know, they don't have a lot of hit points. They have no AC, but they've got a really strong attack. So this could do some serious damage. These are the 10 that are going to be initially there, which probably will be enough at the start. Let's just see what it looks like if I randomly place them on the board, not knowing where any of the PCs are going to be. Oh dear. My PC's freaking out a little bit. Y'all still there? Okay. Everything's blinking. It's not a good sign. Okay, so this is kind of what it looks like with 10. I could do more. I could always add more too. Like I said, they'll kill. As they kill these two, more will be spawned in. And then if the players just kick a bunch of ass in that first round, like for some reason I roll really bad initiative, they get really good rolls, and they take out half of them, I may just spawn in more the next round and just try to make it interesting without being a slog, because you don't want it to go too long. But I want to at least have enough to, be able to kill these guys and scare the players a bit. I could do a thing where they could even grapple people and throw them over the ship, but I don't think that's something the Spectres would think about doing. They're just sitting there, they just want to attack, almost like just feral spirits. I could go ahead and roll hit points, because their average hit point is 22. So if we want to have at least 2 waiting in the wings for when these 2 die, and possibly more, let's put another 4. So let's roll hit points for 4 more. Which I believe they pretty much have the same stats as a ghoul in terms of their defenses. 5d8, AC 12. Roll them dice. 14 is really bad. Oof. That is an emaciated Spectre. Alright, that was oddly average and ascending. 14, 21, 22, 28. It's not oddly average, it should be average. It's like a child ghoul, if I want to be really creepy. Or a Spectre. So this is the most just traditional fight, although I can see the pirate one turning into a straight up fight for sure. I don't see the players getting out of that pirate one through dialogue. Except towards the end, if they take out... I don't think Jaharwan will surrender at all. He'll be like in a rage in his Wereborn Mort at some point. But once they take him out, to go back to the other fight, and depending on the numbers on the top, then I think those pirate crew would surrender. Goes through the mesh, kills some crew members under deck. The only one I have is I only have 3. I really wanted this to be like the players have hardly... or the Brazen Pegasus has hardly any crew, and in fact the players are going to have to do some work on the ship. Like somebody should probably be the cook, and somebody's going to have to be the surgeon and all that. Not that I really have. One thing I was going to do is for the cook, they could do a survival check each day to cook a meal, and if they roll high enough, maybe they could give everybody a +1 to skill checks and saving throws. Could be a fun thing. The lookout would be able to roll the perception checks to spot, the pirates maybe, or in this fog coming in, and that kind of thing. And obviously the priest could, or the surgeon could heal injured crew members, which is kind of a hand-waving thing anyway. But I wanted to create that aspect of this ship being very low on crew, and the players have to step up to fill in some of those roles, which is why I'm leaning towards having the pirate crew surrender so that they still have some crew for that ship, because after this Spectre fight, I just realized I should probably do this before the pirate one, because if I wait till after, there's a good chance they won't have any frickin' crew left, and obviously I don't have the map set up for the other pirate ship, so this will definitely have to be before the pirate encounter. So this one will probably be day 4, the pirate encounter will be day 5, and then day 6 they will arrive in Jahaka Bay, which, given how the length of combat, I don't expect us to actually make it to Jahaka Bay next session. I'm basically just prepping these water encounters. And then next week's Crafting Annihilation will be spent prepping, presumably, Jahaka Anchorage, and then also how to deal with that ship that's outside. And hopefully I'll have more information based on how the players deal with that pirate ship. You know, so they commandeer that ship, or what's the situation there? Are they taking both ships? And then I'll be able to better prep for Jahaka Anchorage as well as the bay. And then following that, we can prep Dengwaru. So that's kind of what we're looking at for, I think, the next couple weeks of Tomb of Annihilation. And I think that will do it for this week's Crafting Annihilation. Thank you all for joining me. As I mentioned, I will be actually going live with my Let's Play Banner Saga 2 in about 45 minutes. I'm going to go eat lunch and then come back for that as I make up for tomorrow, because I won't be live streaming tomorrow afternoon, but we will still be having D&D session tomorrow evening as normal. I will see you all then for that.